I'm going to now just go over everything in this. And so I'm going to ask you to just follow with me. You'll be able to go back and revisit all this later. You can follow the links and watch the performances. You can always go back and just watch the whole PBS movie and check it out. But these are the parts I want you to know. So I want you to be able to explain both the Lady Macbeth sleepwalking out damn spot and the tomorrow and tomorrow speech that Macbeth gives. So to bring us up to this, if you're going, oh crud, I don't know what those two things are, let me give you another very brief summary that leads us to this climactic ending. Okay, so after they first kill the king, right, Macbeth can't sleep. He's PTSD, he's sleep deprived, and he slowly descends into paranoid insanity, culminating with him going to the witches, drinking that potion, seeing these things, and getting these riddles. Lady Macbeth, it turns out, although she is sleeping, she isn't really sleeping. She's tormented and she's sleepwalking. And not only is her servant concerned, but also when the doctor witnesses, he is concerned. So we know that by this point in the story, both Macbeth and Lady Macbeth have been driven to the brink of insanity by their guilt, by their conscience. So no matter how much they kind of try to reason their way out of it, no matter how much they try to choose the path of the cruel, hardcore killer, this conscience drives them into insanity. So we are at this point in the story with this summary where we cut to Lady Macbeth, and we get this is our one look in the play of Lady Macbeth's torment and her insanity. And so the out damn spot is a reference to, it is a figurative metaphor for this idea that we cannot scrub our own conscience clean. If we have a guilty conscience, how do we get rid of that guilt in ourselves? What do we do to rid ourselves of the guilt that we carry with us? Now, I know everybody in here, well, maybe some of you, lucky you, don't carry any guilt with you about anything you've ever done. Regret. But if you have something that you regret, something that you did that you feel bad about, remorse is the word. How do you resolve that remorse? Like, what do you do in order to compensate for what you have done? And so that's part of her thing, is that there is no compensation. You know, she's in trouble. So then she turns and takes her own life. And when Macbeth learns about this, he turns and gives this tomorrow and tomorrow soliloquy. A soliloquy is when they stand on the stage, there's no one else there, and they just speak to the open air. It's kind of like what's going on in their head. And he talks about life. He gives a whole series of metaphors pertaining to life and pertaining to a person's life. And so we have this moment of both of them insane, both of them miserable. She has chosen death as the only way out, and Macbeth is now contemplating the meaning of his life and whether, what has he achieved. So that is what leads us up to today's reading assignment, is at this point. We already know that Malcolm is using camouflage, and Macbeth has looked down and gone, oh crap, the forest is moving, so he knows what's coming. He's not going to be king, but he still believes that he is completely invulnerable, that he cannot be killed because he cannot be killed by anyone who is born of a woman. So by this point in the story, he's going to just basically start killing people, looking for someone who possibly wasn't born from a woman. So that's our last riddle. How can that be? If you click on the notes, boom, oops, wrong slides. I need to refresh. You're going to refresh me. There we go. Here we go. So on today's notes, I have gone so far as to lay out complete summaries for both of those things for you to look at. I also want you to note that if you go back to the original documents where the whole scene is contained, I've even annotated these. So if you go back to the original out damn spot scene and you go back to the tomorrow and tomorrow, I've broken them down and I've annotated them for you, because I really want you to, especially this one, understand it. So I'm going to kind of explain it super quickly, and refer to this slide. And when you go back to it and you're thinking about it, you can be trying to write it right now or later on when you go to it. You can always come back to this and refer to it. The goal again is to try to understand what the heck is she saying. What does this mean? So I split it up into chunks. So the first chunk up here is our first glimpse of her, and she is washing her hands. So you have to imagine that the entire time that she is speaking, she is washing her hands. Now there, the doctor and the servant say things in between, but I have copied and pasted what does Lady Macbeth say. Okay, what does she do? What does she say? So I've posted it here so you can see this is cut and paste what she says. So what does she do? Well, first, she's trying to wash her hands, right? She's washing her hands like crazy. In the first stanza, she basically confesses that they killed the king, and is like getting down on Macbeth for freaking out. You remember, it goes something like this. I'll ring the bell and then you go in and do it. And so she rings the bell, ding, ding, 1, 2. And then he goes in and does it. And when he returns, he's freaked out on the blood. You remember that part? My hands are of your color. And she kind of goes, oh, why are you freaking out? It's like no big deal. And she says, what need we fear? Who knows it when none can call our power to account? So what if they know that I did this? There's nothing they can do to us. And I want you to think about the similarities between a kind of a fascist autocracy where you have a leader who can be caught red-handed doing things, but they will boast, no one can challenge my power. So you can, yeah, that's right. Who cares if they find out, okay? But she says, and here is a blood reference, yet who would have thought the old man to have had so much blood in him? So this blood imagery again, which is powerful throughout the play, an ongoing motif. How many of you know the movie Blood In, Blood Out? And again, we have this imagery of when the blood is in, it is inside of us and we are alive, we are passionate. When the blood is out, we are dead, we are injured. And so who would have thought that the king had so much blood in him, so that there's this idea of him being the receptacle of the blood of Scotland, of the blood of God, that when she spilled his blood, or when Macbeth spilled his blood, who would have known it would lead us to this? And so there's that kind of that idea. So of course the doctor watching goes, what? She just said they killed the king. Then she says, the Thane of Fife had a wife, where is she now? So that's a little kind of like going crazy, saying a little children's nursery rhyme. The Thane of Fife had a wife, where is she now? Like, I'm a mess. I'm a hot mess, okay? I can't clean my hands. Can't get it off my hands, okay? And no matter what I do, I can't get this guilt out of me. And then she says it again, no more of that, my lord, no more of that. You mar all with this starting. That's when he's freaking out on the ghost. So she's back now at the dinner with Banquo's ghost, and she's saying, stop freaking out. And then she smells her hands. Now, why is this important? Well, because there's the visual of I can't get the spot out, I can see it. But this implies that even though you can't see the blood on my hands, okay, I can smell it. It's still there. You know that idea when you get something, a stain out or something out, but you're like, oh man, that still smells funky? And that's her idea, this idea that although we can't see the guilt, the guilt still permeates everything. Where it goes, oh, 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 that's the blood-curdling scream. Okay, that's when, right? Totally going insane. And then finally, wash your hands, put on your nightgown. I tell you again, Banquo's buried. He cannot come out of his grave. So this is when he's buried. Everybody else thinks that Banquo just took off, They don't know he's dead. Remember, they chopped him all up, put him in a grave, and nobody knows he's dead. So not only has she said that, Banquo's dead and buried, this is clearly an admission of guilt, which no one suspects. So the doctor goes, oh my God, even that. And then the final part is her hearing the knocking. Remember the porter doing the knock-knock jokes about the gates of hell? And she says, what's done cannot be undone. There is no redemption for this. We can't change what we have done, and the gates of hell are knocking, and we have gone into hell. Hell is murky. The gates knocking, we are now in hell. And so she's come to this place where she is in hell. She cannot redeem herself. There is no redeeming their actions. And so she chooses suicide at the end of this. Okay? And so kind of seeing that's kind of the logic. I can't get the guilt out. I can't get the smell out. There's no redemption. I am trapped. I am going to hell, and that's what I deserve. And so she goes to hell. The next part is the Tomorrow and Tomorrow speech, which right now, leading up to the end of this play, is the most important speech that I have here. And I really, this is an assignment. This is what we're going to do next class. This is what I'm going to ask you to read. I'm going to ask you to explain it. So if you don't figure out anything else, try to focus a little bit on this soliloquy and understanding a little bit of not only what do the words translate into, but overall, what does it mean philosophically within an existential philosophical framework? What is this soliloquy, and what does it mean to us? And so what occurs is Macbeth knows the castle is under siege. He knows the forest is moving. He knows like all this stuff is happening, and he is told. Actually, he doesn't know yet the forest is moving. He knows the armies are coming. He knows everybody's bailing. He hasn't quite learned that the forest is moving. And then he hears women crying, sends his boy out to check it out, and he comes back and says, Lady Macbeth is dead. And so he turns and he gives this soliloquy, this speech about life, about life. And so I'm going to go over it again, and I have it annotated on the original one. It is annotated here in your notes, and I have it again split up across from one another, so you can read the right side and kind of see what it means, and then look over at its corresponding set of lines and how that fits. So whichever format, this is from the last assignment, so you can find this here to go over it. So I'm going to use the notes because I kind of like the visual of the lines here. So first thing he says is, she should have died hereafter. There would have been a time for such a word. Let me translate that quite frankly. She picked a really bad time to die. I don't really have time for this right now. I don't really have time for this. What bad time? Then he says, tomorrow and tomorrow and tomorrow creeps in this petty pace from day to day to the last syllable of recorded time. So this is this idea that, sunrise, sunset, day after day after day. The days keep going on and on and on. I mean, it doesn't matter whether we're here or not. Those days keep going. And if we live, we got to live through tomorrow and tomorrow and tomorrow. But here's the deal. All our yesterday, have lighted fools the way to dusty death. So what's that mean? That means there were a bunch of fools yesterday who were thinking about today. Well, yesterday they were thinking about tomorrow, and they died. And so they don't get tomorrow, right? So even though tomorrow is here, they didn't get tomorrow. So this is really important to think about this idea that tomorrow and tomorrow, It keeps going on whether or not I live tomorrow. And if I am living my life for tomorrow, the truth is that I may die and not have lived today. So there's this idea that if you're always focusing on living tomorrow, today, and you want to call that procrastination. Why to do today what you can put off until tomorrow? And this is a statement about the idea that you were only given today and that tomorrow is uncertain. And although tomorrow will occur, you may not be there, right? Out, brief candle. This is quite simply, life is short. It's a brief candle. It's a short candle. If you burn bright, it burns quicker. If you burn it at both ends, it goes out right away. This is also a reference to Lady Macbeth. Then we know Lady Macbeth was not old. She did not die of old age. She was young, and she died too young. And this is this referencing again to the shortness of life, the brief time that we have here. Life's but a walking shadow. So we know about our own deaths. Actually, many philosophers state that what sets us apart from the rest of the animals is our consciousness and our conscious knowledge of our own mortality, that we will die. We are aware of the passing of time, and we are aware that as time passes, our death is inevitably on that path. So we live our lives waiting for that, knowing that that is there. Okay, life is a poor player that struts and frets his hour upon the stage. Okay, life is. We are poor players, actors. And we're just acting. I'm just acting like I'm a teacher. I'm just acting like I'm this kind of person, right? And we have pride and we worry, and this dominates our life as we act out our pride and our worry and our concern in our brief hour upon the stage, our short lives. When you die, and then is heard no more. When you are dead, that's it. You don't come back from the death. You don't get to speak anymore. This is it. You got this time. This is the time you get to do your thing, say your thing, whatever you're going to do. You got this hour, okay? Because when the hour is over, it's over. You're not coming back, okay? Life is a tale told by an idiot. It's one of my favorites, right? A tale. It's a story. Life is a story. Your life is a story, right? Told by an idiot means it's stupid. It doesn't make sense. If you're trying to make sense out of your life, if you're trying to make sense out of what has happened to you, then you're confused, because it's a story told by, it's an idiotic story. It's made up by somebody who doesn't know what they're talking about, right? Full of sound and fury. What's that mean? Sound and fury. I mean, it sounds important, right? I mean, there's sound effects and there's craziness and there's drama and there's all this stuff going on. Seems really important, but the truth is, your life is not important. Your life doesn't have any innate meaning. Just being alive is not meaning. And so, although you think your dramas and your stuff gives your life meaning, it really doesn't. Okay? So there's the whole speech in a nutshell. And I'll read it from the beginning. Tomorrow and tomorrow and tomorrow creeps in this petty pace from day to the last syllable of recorded time. And all our yesterdays have lighted fools the way to dusty death. Out, brief candle. Life's but a walking shadow. A poor player that struts and frets his hour upon the stage and then is heard no more. It is a tale told by an idiot, full of sound and fury, signifying nothing. So hopefully if that makes a little more sense when you watch it, when you try to read it later on, I'm hoping that'll be kind of stuck in your head when we get to it. But that's the beginning there, okay? That's your summarize, explain. You should know a little bit about what she does and says. You should have a pretty good idea about this speech, okay? And so now I'm going to bring you into the end of this play. I'm going to show you a little bit of the video and encourage you to go and watch the video finales and all of these video clips when you're doing this. So I want to talk a little bit about the idea of pride. This is part of your notes. Pride is that perceived value of ourselves, how we value ourselves, or a value we place in some sort of connection to something, right? I could be proud of my family. I can be proud of my achievements. I can be proud of my culture. Okay, and this may either be just inward, you may not see it, or it could be expressed outwardly, that pride. Okay. Negative connotation, that means how would we use the word pride in a negative way? Right? So if I was to accuse you of being prideful, how is that negative? Well, it's this idea that gives you a sense of more value, that you think you're more valuable, that you associate your pride with your value as a human being. You may even overrate your accomplishments and your whole hubris and self-importance over this. So it's one thing to say that what I do has value. It's another thing to say that I'm more valuable because of the things I do. If that makes sense. The positive aspects that are usually found within Western culture, and that's our culture, and that's the culture of all of the Americas, Europe, these are all Western cultures, is that we see this idea that we are prideful about our choices and our actions towards a particular group, and it makes us feel a sense of belonging to that group. So we're kind of attached to these ideas, and we state our pride in them in terms of our ideas are really valuable and often make us more valuable. These are the ideas of pride. Now I want to point out that in Eastern culture, pride is called mana, and mana is negative. Pride is never considered positive within Eastern, Buddhist, Taoist belief systems. That it is this idea that it is the basis for disrespecting others and for suffering. Our sense of self-worth is our number one impediment to enlightenment. The number one thing blocking you from being truly enlightened is to not understand that you are not important, that you are not special. You are a human being, and as a human being, you are part of this larger interconnectedness of all things. So the moment you think you are different, or you stand out, or there is something particularly special about you, this is considered arrogance. This is considered conceit, and it is the source for you disrespecting others, that you think you are better than. And it is also why you suffer, because you are constantly concerned with your own pride. I cannot do that because of my pride. And so I want you to think about these two ideas. How does pride affect people's behaviors? How does it affect their choices? And how do they express their ideas of pride? So what does that have to do with the end of Macbeth? Well, because Macbeth is a very prideful dude, as is Malcolm, as is all of these men, right? They're all prideful. Why did Macduff go and talk to Malcolm and get his family slaughtered? Because he was prideful. Pride in Scotland, pride in himself. But, Lady Macduff called him out and said, what are you talking about? You suck. You suck as a husband, you suck as a father, and you're all proud of what you do. But these ideas of pride are not necessarily healthy. They lead us to other types of behavior. So here is the big finale of the play. Okay, so we know now, right after he gives the tomorrow speech, the trees are moving. He sounds the alarm. Everybody gets their armor on. They're standing out at the castle walls. They're looking down at the forest moving. They're getting ready for the attack. And we cut to Malcolm and his army. And Malcolm says, now near enough, your leafy screens throw down and show like those you are. So first thing he says is, dump the camo. Show them how many of us there are. Because they wanted them to err in report of how many. So they wanted to go shock value. Oh my God, look at how many there are. Then he turns to this guy, Seward, and Seward is like his top general, and he says, you are going to lead the first charge along with your son. Right? And he says, Macduff and I will come in afterwards and do cleanup. So Seward says, if we but find the tyrant's power tonight, let us be beaten if we cannot fight, which basically means let's fight to the death. We either die in this attempt or we succeed. And Macduff says, make all our trumpets speak, those clamorous harbingers of blood and death. Blood again, and that they charge. And so now we're going to see, if you could see it in a movie, it's the army charging up the hill towards Macbeth's castle. Now here's the deal. Nobody is supporting Macbeth, right? Everybody's bailed. A lot of them have gone out and joined the army in the forest. Macbeth is kind of on his own, right? And the deal is, though, he thinks he's invincible, so he's just going around killing people. So when Seward attacks and they're fighting, Seward's son finds Macbeth. And in this courageous statement of masculine dagger violence, he attempts to kill Macbeth, but Macbeth kills him mercilessly. And so later on, Seward is told, your son has been killed. And, like any guy in this position, there's pride. I'm proud of my son. I'm proud of his courage. I'm proud of his death. And so we have this, again, this support, this restating of the male way is the way of violence, the way is the way of aggression, and that death is an honorable, prideful thing. And so I want you to notice that that's not a lot different than Macbeth. They're slaughtering these people and they're getting killed. All we see is just heightened violence. Macduff is looking for Macbeth. That's all he cares about. He's not fighting anybody else. He's just like, where is this Macbeth? I don't want to kill anybody else here because they're all Scottish. I'm not going to kill my own brothers because they're acting under orders. I'm going to find Macbeth. So he finds Macbeth, and they have this epic fight. It's the very end of the play, and if it's staged on, if it's on stage, it's a choreographed sword fight. In the different movie versions, they use differing levels of cinematography and special effects to show this epic battle. I'm going to summarize it, and then I'm going to finish class by showing you just a little clip of the movie version. So it goes something like this. Macduff finds him. Macbeth says, I've been trying to avoid you because, remember the apparition said, beware Macduff. So he's being, beware Macduff. And he says, I've already killed too many Macduffs as it is, so I don't even want to mess with you. But Macduff says, I have no words. My voice is in my sword. He said, I'm not here to talk to you. I'm here to kill you. And Macduff attacks him. But unfortunately, Macbeth wins. He's winning. He's about ready to kill Macduff. Why? Because Macbeth is all like pumped up. He's invincible, right? None of woman born can kill me. And so he's got Macduff on the ground, usually with the sword at his throat. And he says, thou losest labor. That means you're wasting your time. Let fall thy blade on vulnerable crests. I bear a charmed life, which must not yield to one of woman born. So he says, you're wasting your time. I'm like invincible. I can't be beat by anybody who is born of a woman. And Macduff famously says, despair thy charm, and let the angel whom thou still hast served tell thee, Macduff was from his mother's womb untimely ripped. So he says, ha ha, dude, I wasn't born. Untimely ripped. That means, C-section. And so Macbeth then says, I'm going to show you the whole version, and I'm going to show you this because it's longer than what I have you translating. There we go. And this is all annotated. So Macbeth says, then I'm not going to fight with you. Okay? I'm not fighting with you. And Macduff says, cool. So surrender so we can put you on trial and everybody can make fun of you and lock you up. And Macbeth goes, on second thought, I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to surrender. I will try to the last. He challenges fate right up to the end. And he says, lay on Macduff, and damn be him that first cries hold enough. So he basically says, you got to kill me. I'm not going to surrender. You got to kill me. And so they exit stage right fighting. Right? So we just, and then they exit. We cut. Camera cuts to Malcolm entering the castle. They're going, the castle is yours. And he says, hey, that would be good, but, Macduff is missing. And your son. And they go, yeah, my son's dead, but here comes Macduff. And Macduff is carrying Macbeth's head. And he presents it to the king, says, here is the usurper's cursed head. Hail, King of Scotland. Malcolm holds, at the end of the play, holds the head and says, this dead butcher and his fiend-like queen, who, as 'tis thought, by self and violent hands took her life. So at the very end, he says Macbeth is a butcher, that his queen was a fiend, and that she committed suicide. And then he says, so everybody, let's celebrate. I'm throwing a big party at the palace tonight, and you're all invited later. And the play ends. Okay? And so I'm going to show you, to end class here, this is the movie in 2015. It's cinematography, but I want you to kind of see this. The others are the staged versions. Let me go back. So Sir Ian McKellen, here we go. Oops. I got to change the sound. And again, I'm just going to show you this, and then I'll come back and be releasing you. So this is the end of the play.
And die at mine own sword. Whilst I see lives, the gashes do better upon them.
Turn, hellhound. Turn.
Of all men else I have avoided thee, but get thee back. My soul is too much charged with blood of thine already.
I have no words. My voice is in my sword!
Thou losest labor! Let fall thy blade on vulnerable crests. I bear a charmed life, which must not yield to one of woman born.
Despair thy charm, and let the angel whom thou still hast served tell thee Macduff was from his mother's womb untimely ripped.
And I'm going to pause in this version because I just wanted you to see Sir Ian here, and kind of Sir Ian here. Let me get I think I have my speaker on. I just turned on the other thing. Good. So just seeing Sir Ian and a little bit of the stage fighting is what I wanted you to check out. The PBS gives us a little bit different version of this. So rather than sword fighting, if you remember, PBS was set in World War II. That's Macduff.
And more I beg not.
And I like this version because it shows Macbeth's insanity.
Was he that was not born of woman? Was he that was not born of woman? Swords, I smile at weapons laugh to scorn. Brandished by man that's of a woman born.
Turn, hellhound. Turn. Of all men else I have avoided thee,
But get me back. My soul is charged with too much blood of thine already.
I have no words. My voice is in my blade. Thou bloodier villain than terms can give thee out.
Thou losest labor. As easy mayst thou the intrenchant air with thy keen blade impress as make me bleed. I bear a charmed life, which must not yield to one of woman born.
Despair thy charm, and let the angel whom thou still hast served tell thee Macduff was from his mother's womb untimely ripped.
Tells me so. And be these juggling fiends no more believed, that palter with us in a double sense, that keep the word of.
And thou, opposed being of no woman born, yet I will try the last.
My favorite part.
Before my body, I throw my warlike shield. Lay on, Macduff, and damn be he that first cries, hold!
Safe arrived.
So here's
Some
Malcolm.
gone, and yet by these I
over,
see
they
so
won.
great a day as this is cheaply bought. Macduff is missing.
Here he comes. There's kind of a tradition in Shakespeare of the severed head.
Hail, King. For so thou art. Behold, where stands the usurper's cursed head. The time is free. Hail! King of Scotland! Hail! King of Scotland!
So thus ends the movie. So thus ends the play, and it ends with the king Malcolm giving a speech on how they're going to have to repair the country and they're going to have to bring everybody back together. And it's been really hard and it's been really damaging, but he's going to do his best. We know already that Malcolm wields violence. He wields the dagger. He is also part of a whole systemic, series of violences which have led him to power. So Shakespeare makes it very clear that he's not entirely optimistic about anything changing significantly because both of the sides are employing kind of the same strategies. It's also implied in that version I just showed you that Macbeth kind of commits suicide too. I mean, he could have just surrendered. He could have just gone on trial and gone to jail and been humiliated, but his pride forced him to take death, which was really suicide. I mean, you're going to say he fought to the end, but knowing he was going to die still is a suicidal choice. And so both Lady Macbeth and Macbeth at the end of the play are absolutely miserable. Nothing that they did made them happy or contented. They have nobody who cries for their loss. Not even Macbeth cried for the loss of his wife. That's how disconnected she was from anything of meaning in her life. And when he dies, his severed head becomes the celebration of the country. Not the way that you want to have your life end. By being crazy in despair, committing suicide, and everybody throwing a party about it. So the lessons to be learned from Macbeth come from that place. That is the end of my spiel for today. I am going to step out. I'll set up your attendance, and it'll be there in just 1 minute.